So we're back here with another video, and it's beyond stock removal. And I kind of alluded to in the live show this morning about I would go into more of what I call stock removal, what's forged finish. All right. So in my mind, there are probably four different ways to make a knife. You can grind it out completely. Start with a rectangle, grind everything out, cut and paste, and that is, and put a handle on it, or quench it, temper it, put a handle on it, and that is quintessential stock removal. But and which I don't do at all. Um, and then there's what I still consider stock removal, but it's almost like forging a potato. And that, when I mean potato, I mean picture a um, in nondescript shape that you can cut a knife out of. And basically, I get lawnmower blades that are twisted and have indentations in it. This is why I do a lot of my stock. I don't do a lot of stock removal, but when I do it out of lawnmower blade. And they look about like this. And so I have to put in my forge, straighten them all up, get them completely flat, and then I'll cut a knife out of it. Yes, technically I did touch it with a hammer. It did go through. I had to straighten it because you got to sit there with a small hammer and then make it completely flat, take out all the warps and bends and everything, because they get these little waves in them even when you cut them out. So you got to take and heat them up and forge them flat. So um, that's basically the same thing as forging potato, in my opinion. You're just basically taking, when you're forging a potato, you're taking some round stock and making it flat and then cutting a piece out of it. That's great and all. When I do that, I'll never charge. My stock removals never go above $100 unless the client wants certain materials that add to the knife. So if I'm putting a wood handle on a stock removal knife, it's going to be below $100 at the price that I quote. If they want composite materials for the handles, then that's when the price starts going up. The highest composite material I have is a micarta composite. It's leather, wood, and paper micarta all in one handle, and those types of handles run about 150 bucks. So, but a normal wood handle, hardwood handle with normal pins and hook holes or lanyard holes in them, they don't run over $100. You usually get them a good sized blade for about, you can get a 3-inch Skinner for me for about $60, and it carries the same guarantee and lifetime guarantee, 100% satisfaction that my Ford stuff does. So, but this right here, I'm working on an order today for a friend of mine out of the Winaha who gave me a bunch of tool steel, and he wanted 2 chef knives. So I am forging him, or not. I stuck these and straightened all the steel, and then cut them out. And so they still have some light hammer marks on it. Not too bad. They're straight. That's the most important part, and they're going to be for him to do with what he wants to do with it. But these are my stock removals, and if I was to sell these are about 7.5-inch chef knives. These would go for about $85 to $90 a piece. So, because I would just put wood handles on them and be done with them. That's what I'm gonna do, is put just some nice wood, hardwood handles on, probably oak, maybe walnut. Not sure yet. But then, so we went over the first two that I consider. So you have true stock removal, where you're just grinding something out, throwing a handle on it, and calling it good. Then where you have this, where you are technically hitting it with a hammer, put in your forge, and reshaping the steel to a flat plane, and then cutting it out. In my book, those are two basically the same thing. I'm not going to charge more than $100 for either one of those. And then you have um, so forging potato and straightening out steel and then cutting out in my book is all the same. And then you have forge to shape. Now, forge to shape, my forge to shape would look like this. Some other people's forge to shape still looks like a potato. I'm not knocking them for it. Just telling you this is my forge to shape. When I do a forge to shape, it's going to have that thick of a blade on it. When I do a forge to shape, and then I will cut it off and grind it out and grind the rest of it in. That's going to be right around, upwards of, depending on the length of the blade, you're looking at a couple $100, you know, depending on the length of the blade, maybe $300-400, and that's the range that I have right there. And that's just still with the wood handle. Wood handles don't cost me anything. They're they're free basically. I don't charge for materials. I just charge for my time. And then I have the last category, which is forged to finish. Now, a forged to finish is going to have, you're going to forge all your edge geometry into it, your bevels, and you're basically, it's going to take, I mean, if you didn't clean it up, you can legitimately hit it with a file to knock down, to put cutting edge on it, slap a handle on it, and out the door, and it would cut. That's how much I take when I forge to finish. I love doing it that way. It costs a little bit more, but in my opinion, I think it's a better blade. Mainly because I think it's the work that goes into it. I mean, you forge everything into it. It's like forging. It's one stage from forge to shape. My forge to shape. I, instead of leaving a really thick, um, somewhere around an eighth of an inch, when I forge to shape thick, any blades 1/4 inch or 3/8 thickness, I'll forge to shape down to an eighth of an inch. When I forge to finish, my edge is only a 16th of an inch thick, and then I'll hit everything, and it has all the I forged all the distal taper out on it, where it starts thick and then narrows and gradually comes to a point. Forge all that in with about a 3 ounce, just a very small ball peen hammer. Not quite a 3 ounce, I guess. It's probably more like, it might be a 3 ounce. It's pretty small. It's a pretty small little ball peen hammer. So let's see if I have a weight on this guy. I don't. It's my scales inside. Oh, my scales up there. But I forge everything in, put it on the anvil, and I get right down and I just tap on it and keep drawing it down and drawing it out, and flip it and do the same thing. I just keep on hitting it with that. There's some science. The only way that makes a really hard blade that is harder than stock removal is if you take like 4 inches of steel and upset it down to, you take a 4 inch wide piece of steel that is 8 inches long, and you upset it to 4 inches here, and then upset it down and upset it all into itself to where you have this 1.5 by 1.5 square block, and then you forge a blade out of that. You could say that would make a harder blade, because you've taken and compressed the space between the molecules, atoms of the blade. So you've taken that space and made it smaller and tighter. But Mike Rowley and I are having a conversation a couple weeks back, and it then, once you heat that blade up, it expands and does everything else. But if you upset and compressed all that steel into one tiny little space, and then forged it out and then forged it thin, it's still compressed. You still have all that steel that you put in there. You just what am I trying to say here? You've just elongated it. And so it's all that dense steel. And they do feel heavier. A smaller blade that you've upset back into itself, a 3-inch blade is going to feel heavier. That's been upset and forged all into it. It's going to feel heavier than a 3-inch blade that's a stock removal. Of the same thickness out of the same steel. It's going to feel heavier. Period. Um, whether it is, you might have to do a little experiment with that and see if that is actually truth. Get some hard facts on it to see what it is, and you would have to, because your hardness comes from your quench, and so you'd have to get the same steel, compress it, upset it, forge it out, then take that same steel and cut something out of the same exact dimensions, put the exact same scales on it. Everything has to be just pristinely the same, and then weigh them out. And then you do a hardness test on the blade. So, but for me, I use repurposed steels, and if there's no cracks running through it, I'll make a blade out of it. I'll make a tool out of it. I'll make a punch out of it. I'll make whatever out of it. I'll make a chisel out of it. It doesn't matter. I'll make chisels out of lawnmower blades. I don't care if they're thick enough, and I can forge weld these things together to make thicker steel. So it's just how it's going to be. Now, when we get into, there is a fifth grouping, which is Damascus steel, and anybody who's making their own Damascus steel has every right to forge a billet and then cut it out and it not be considered stock removal in my book, even though the process of the blade making itself is stock removal. You forge that billet, that Damascus, with a power hammer, a press, a hand hammer, whatever. And in my opinion, you should be able to charge as much as you want to charge for that, and not be screwing your clients out of their money just because you want to charge $800 for a stock removal knife. That's just highway robbery, in my opinion. It does take a little bit. It does take some artistic skill, but in bladesmithing, you don't have to be an artist or have an artsy fartsy bone in your body to do it. It can all be taught because it's all based, and you don't even have to think about it. You can pull knife designs off the internet, slap them on a piece of steel, and cut them out. And if you do a little research, you can figure out how to quench and how to temper. It doesn't take any skill at all. In my opinion. Now, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I got buddies out there that's what they do, and I'm not knocking on. It kind of sounds like I am, but I'm not. Those guys, they don't charge an arm and a leg for their stuff. They charge exactly what they're providing. It's the people out there that are charging $800 for a stock. Yeah, it looks pretty, but you're paying for their materials. You're not paying for their knowledge and know-how. So do research. Once again, do research on who you're buying from, and make sure you're getting a good product, and make sure that the person you're buying from guarantees their work for life. If they don't guarantee their work for life, don't buy from them. Because that's telling you right there that they don't really give a shit. So if it's guaranteed, buy them. Even all my stuff's guaranteed. I have that much pride in what I do. And some of these guys, they may not have a thing out there that says it's guaranteed, but I can guarantee you the guys I know guarantee their product. They take pride in what they do, whether they're stock removals, grinders, or forgers. They take pride in what they do, and they're not going to charge an arm and a leg for something that they didn't put a lot into. That's just not what they're going to do. So do your research and make sure you know who you're buying from. So, and once again, you have true stock removal, cut it out, grind it down, slap a handle on it, call it good. You have forging a potato and then straightening steels, repurposed steels, to then be cut out, ground out, slap a handle on it, put it out there. You have forged the shape. A lot of guys do it. I don't knock them on it because they're trying to make a living at this thing, and in my opinion, they get a shape out there that they can then use their artistic side of their self to then make a knife out of it. By all means, go ahead and do it. I'm just pointing out what I do and what I consider not cheap but more budget friendly. More the budget friendly side of bladesmithing is, in my opinion, stock removal, and then you start getting more and more expensive as you climb up the ladder into the forging side of it. So, and then any kind of Damascus steel, in my opinion, homogeneous Damascus, where you only see the pattern by putting extra twist in it, by by really fine sanding on it, so you can get the forge welds in between the layers. Homogeneous Damascus is the best Damascus to buy because it's all tool steel. You're not gonna fall into the trap of having a shiny on the side. Now I know guys out there, they won't sell a knife. They'll throw it over in their regurgitate pile and turn it into something else at a later date if there's any shiny on the blade, and that's what they should do. Um, because there's no use selling a tool to somebody that eventually isn't going to be able to use it. So, all right, folks. So, I appreciate everybody tuning into the YouTube channel. We'll have more videos to come. Once again, these are the dual chef knives that I'm working on right now. Today, I'm not feeling all that great, so I'm going to call it a day, go inside, and chill out and be done with it. So, tune in for some more stuff, and we will hopefully won't disappoint. Take it easy.